Hello, I'm Esther Gido. It's Tuesday, May 31st. This is Africa 54.
Therapeutic food has been a crucial weapon in the fight against child malnutrition in places like Somalia. But aid agencies warn it is becoming too expensive. A new UN report sounds the alarm on the number of civilians killed by Mali's military or militant groups in the first 3 months of this year. And the outbreak of monkeypox is raising alarms as the virus continues to spread around the world. But how serious is the threat?
The war in Ukraine is heaping further pressure on Africa's fast-growing population of vulnerable people, according to United Nations officials. Cereal prices have surged because of the slump in exports from one of the world's breadbaskets. Rising food costs are sharpening the impact of conflict and climate change across Africa. Millions of people have already been driven into poverty or forced from their homes, according to Raouf Mazu, Assistant High Commissioner, United Nations Human Rights Refugees Commission. Mazu, who spoke by telephone from Malabo, the capital of Equatorial Guinea, where he attended a special summit of the African Union at the weekend, said Africa already faced displacement on an unprecedented scale through the double crunch of climate-related disasters and conflicts. Plumpy nut has been a crucial weapon in the fight against child malnutrition in places like Somalia since it was developed in the 1990s. But aid agencies are warning it is becoming too expensive. Clara Frank has more.
When Hassan Noor arrived at this IDP camp in Somalia, he was half what a child his age should weigh. 3 months later, and the 1-year-old is looking healthier, thanks in part to Plumpy nut. The peanut-based paste has been a crucial weapon in the fight against child malnutrition since it was developed by French scientists in the 1990s. But aid agencies say it is becoming too expensive, to an extent because of the conflict in Ukraine. Rania Dagash, regional director for UNICEF, said the fundamental issue for Somalia at the moment is climate-induced drought.
But where the effects of the Ukraine crisis come in is that the food prices and fuel prices and others are hiked up to a point where we need more resources to secure what we would have secured before. We need a lot more.
UNICEF says it spends $137 million a year on therapeutic food. The overall market is estimated to be worth up to $400 million. But according to its main producer, Nutriset, the cost of Plumpy nut has risen 23% in the past year. That includes a 9% hike imposed since the start of the Ukraine conflict, which has triggered an international food crisis and set prices soaring. In a letter to customers in March, Nutriset warned of impending price increases. It said the costs of ingredients such as palm oil, milk powder, and whey, as well as packaging, had risen sharply. Shipping expenses have also rocketed. In all, Nutriset said costs are up 39%. Aid agencies say the problem for Africa's worst-hit countries has been compounded as donor countries divert state aid to help Ukraine's refugees. Rupia Yakub is deputy director for the World Food Program in East Africa.
Commodity prices have almost doubled in Somalia, and in some parts 93% high. The humanitarian appeal for Somalia is only 15% funded. So what we need now is money. We need the cash to avert the risk of famine.
UNICEF predicts the price of therapeutic food will rise 16% in the next 6 months because of Ukraine as well as pandemic disruptions. Clara Frank, VOA News.
The number of civilians killed by Mali's military or militant groups has dramatically increased in the first 3 months of this year, a United Nations report said on Monday. More than 500 Malian civilians died in attacks by the army or militant groups in the first 3 months of this year, according to a United Nations report. That's a 324% increase on the previous quarter. It appears Mali's military junta is failing to limit human rights abuses or stop groups linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State from carrying out campaigns of violence. The report from the UN's mission in Mali, known as MINUSMA, was released on Monday. It comes just as Mali's junta, which seized power in a 2020 coup, is severing ties with former colonial power France. Russian private military contractors have stepped in to replace European soldiers in the battle against militants, while Western powers have strongly opposed Wagner's intervention. UN experts previously expressed concern at reports of human rights abuses by the contractors elsewhere on the continent. Mali's military did not respond to requests for a comment. Wagner could also not be reached. The MINUSMA report documented 320 human rights violations between January and March. That compares with just 31 in the previous 3 months. Most notable was the case of Mura. Witnesses and rights groups say Malian army, accompanied by white fighters, arrived in the town at the end of March and killed scores of civilians who they suspected to be militants. Monday's report said, as well as summary executions, security forces also allegedly raped, looted, and detained many civilians. MINUSMA is conducting an investigation, but it said it has been refused access to the town until the government has conducted its own probe. For more insight on Mali's security situation, I'm joined live via Skype from Houston, Texas by Aristide Sidibe, a Malian political analyst. Mr. Aristide, welcome back to Africa 54.
Good morning, Esther. Thank you for having me today.
Let me get your reaction first to this United Nations report on the situation in Mali.
Esther, thank you for the question. And I have a couple of observations about that report, or I should say accusation, because I believe that these are accusations, and because of the fact that the UN MINUSMA in Mali, in their report, they even stated that they will deny access to the site of the alleged abuse. So in the Western world, we have a word for that. If you have an investigation, you have to have all the facts. Otherwise, you are basically doing a smearing campaign, because Mali been in this situation for 10 years, and there was a lot of abuse, and the MINUSMA was there. The MINUSMA never has prevented any of those abuse, and is turning in the eye of Malian today as an investigative arm for certain power in the region.
I've checked the latest updates, Mr. Aristide, with VOA's Mali service. We have people from Mali, and they talk to human rights analysts. But there is truth in this report. The United Nations, we know, goes there. They do their investigation and their work. So what more would you say, especially when you see the report about the involvement of the government killing civilians, and also the Russian group, the Wagner group?
I always say in all my intervention on the press, I live in the U.S. and I have family in Mali. I'm a Fulani, the ethnic group that is allegedly been killed by the Malian government. So to me, I will not stand in front of you and claim that that is happening, because if I have proof, because I have my family there, if I have proof of those alleged abuse, I will be the first one taken to the news to say that.
But also, Mr. Aristide, the government is now saying it is going to investigate these accusations. But how can Malians trust a government investigating itself against accusations that its own military killed civilians in the country?
That is nothing new, Esther. The West does that all the time. That's nothing new. That is the responsibility of the government to investigate. The U.S., the European troop, the NATO troop, in any of those countries, in Libya, in Iraq, or in Afghanistan, they conducted their own report. That is nothing new. So the question that we should ask, if those principles are good for the Western power, are not they good for the African authority as well?
Oh, Mr. Aristide, we'll get back to you for a little more on this later. Thank you very much for your analysis. Mr. Aristide Sidibe is a Malian political analyst. Sudanese authorities on Monday freed several dozen political detainees, though others remain jailed. This came a day after Sudan's military ruler announced the lifting of the state of emergency imposed after the October coup. Those released included 24 people connected to the anti-military protest movement in Port Sudan and another 39 in or near the capital, Khartoum. About 50 people remain detained at Khartoum's Soba prison, while 32 people arrested after protests on Saturday are being held by police. Military ruler Abdel Fattah al-Burhan said on Sunday he was lifting the state of emergency imposed after the coup to create an atmosphere for dialogue. The African Union chairman and Senegalese President Macky Sall has hailed Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi and his Rwandan counterpart President Paul Kagame for holding phone conversations to diffuse their current political feuds. The two central neighboring countries have had tense relations lately following the resurgence of the notorious M23 rebel group in DRC. A team of researchers have come up with a system of monitoring air pollution that is designed for the local environment and far cheaper than American imports. David Doyle has more.
In Uganda's capital, Kampala, a 3D printer is manufacturing a component for the AirCo unit. It's a low-cost air quality monitor developed by researchers at Makerere University. The World Health Organization estimates 7 million people die every year globally from illnesses related to air pollution exposure. Lead researcher engineer Bainagomisha says that statistic was the inspiration to act.
And for us, that was, really an eye-opener for us to come in with technology solutions and how we could contribute to improving air quality.
According to the 2021 World Air Quality Report, Kampala was ranked among the world's most polluted cities, with levels exceeding WHO safe standards by 5 to 7 times. Dust from unpaved roads, wood fuel, and vehicle and industrial emissions are all major sources of pollutants, Uganda's environmental protection body says. To measure the pollution, AirCo deploys a network of sensors across a range of locations, from schools to onboard motorcycle taxis.
Obviously, there's a variation of the pollution levels from place to place, and that's why it is important to create low-cost air quality monitors, because if you look at a city like Kampala, you can't have one monitor and use that to make a statement on the state of air pollution across the country, across the city.
The devices, developed with part funding from Google, gather pollution data which is processed and uploaded on a cloud-based server. Artificial intelligence analyzes the data, boosting the accuracy of readings, making forecasts and troubleshooting errors. Kampala previously relied on air quality monitors mostly imported from the United States. They cost $30,000 apiece. City officials say they required expensive maintenance and frequently broke down because they were not designed specifically for the local environment. AirCo's monitors have been built to withstand conditions including extreme heat and dust, and are powered by both the grid and solar, allowing them to operate when power supplies are interrupted. What's more, at $150, they're quite a bit cheaper.
That was David Doe of Reuters reporting. Some African countries with elephant populations say they want to lift an international ban on ivory trading and culling elephant herds. Representatives meeting at the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species in Zimbabwe in late May said elephant overpopulation is harming communities. Columbus Mavunga has more from outside Hwange, Zimbabwe's largest national park.
In addition to that, there is need for...
Some 14 African countries say they want communities with elephant populations to benefit from them. So they issued a communique after a 4-day conference in May asking for a ban to be lifted on ivory trading and elephant killing. The group plans to take that message to Panama in November for the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, or CITES, an agreement between governments to ensure that wild animal and plant species are protected.
Mainly to say, as African states, we hold the significant population of our elephants. It is therefore important that the ideas, the proposals that we are preferring at CITES need to be taken seriously. Key among them, issues of our wildlife products.
Zimbabwe says its national parks are home to nearly 100,000 elephants, double the number parks can comfortably accommodate. Government officials say, as a result, the animals are moving out of the parks and destroying the crops of nearby communities. This 59-year-old widow lives just outside Hwange National Park.
They're troubling us, invading our fields, invading our homes. We can no longer farm in our fields because of the elephants. So we're asking for the relevant authorities to erect a fence so that elephants cannot cross to this side.
But some African countries, like South Africa, which is home to 45,000 elephants, are against lifting the ban. Officials there say South Africa uses birth control to manage the population and boundary fences on national parks to reduce human-wildlife conflict.
One of the difficulties is people tend to think that the African manager of wildlife has got only one solution. In fact, they don't. They go through some very serious thinking about what can I do before they get to the really hard, difficult ones that now I have to permanently remove an animal.
The European Union opposes lifting the ban on elephant ivory trading and questions the data Zimbabwe used to estimate of its elephant population.
I think, my understanding is that there's information required about carrying capacities and so forth. So I think there's probably work to be done.
Zimbabwe accuses the European Union and other Western countries of influencing CITES to keep the ban on trading ivory, which was implemented to protect dwindling numbers of elephant species from poachers. The ban has encouraged the growth of elephant populations, but it is also causing problems for people like Sibanda. Columbus Mavunga for VOA News, Hwange, Zimbabwe.
Here are some stories that you might have missed. Cameroon troops say they have freed a kidnapped senator from the ruling party and several other hostages. Senator Elizabeth Regine Mundi was kidnapped with her driver on April 30th in Bamenda in the northwest region, where Anglophone separatists have mounted an armed campaign to separate from the majority French-speaking country. In the Horn of Africa, Eritrean forces shelled a town in North Ethiopia over the weekend, according to internal United Nations documents and regional forces. This was a rare bombardment after 2 months of relative peace in the Tigray conflict. And the United Nations and humanitarian agencies on Tuesday warned that millions of people face severe hunger in the Horn of Africa, as the worst drought in more than 40 years could extend to a 5th consecutive failed rainy season. It's time for Health segment, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu. Hello, Lino.
Hello, Esther. Hello, everyone. The outbreak of monkeypox worldwide is raising alarm as the virus continues to spread progressively around the world. Experts say the sudden appearance of monkeypox simultaneously in several non-endemic countries is unusual. However, the World Health Organization does not believe the current outbreak will lead to a pandemic. Experts say so far the current outbreak has shown no significant threat to life life or the community that can result in severe disease or high case fatality. For more insight, I spoke with Dr. Mwidimi Ndosi, Associate Professor of Rheumatology Nursing at the School of Health and Social Wellbeing at the University of the West England, Bristol. Take a look.
So this is a disease that is caused by an infection by a monkeypox virus. And this virus is very much similar to smallpox, although it's not the same virus. It was documented early in the 50s in DRC. It's not known to spread very easily amongst people, but it occurs when people come into contact with the animals that are infected. The incubation period is between 5 to 21 days, but before the symptoms begin, usually with monkeypox, it starts with swelling of lymph nodes, and that is not very common in smallpox. But after that, the symptoms like fever, headache, muscle ache, backache, chills, etc. may follow. And that is very similar to smallpox.
Are the monkeypox lesions so distinctive that people will go see a doctor to get them looked at? Or could they be so similar to others that patients may ignore them?
These are quite serious. They can go even to the soles of the feet. And when they develop, they can be itchy and painful. Treatment is mainly supportive. There's no cure. Usually the disease is supposed to be self-limiting. A few weeks, and then the lesions will dry off, the scab will fall off. Once the skin is intact, then this person is okay.
There is an outbreak of monkeypox currently in several countries around the world, Europe, America, Australia. What is your assessment of the situation and how concerned should we be?
It's not known to bring severe disease on adults, but we do not know that for children it may cause severe disease, or for people who are immunocompromised. Therefore, it is important for people to report and to have this looked at so that we may be able to isolate or prevent transmitting to other people. That is helpful also to people who have been in contact with these people, because vaccination can be given even after contact with the infected person. Yes, smallpox vaccine has been shown to be 85% effective against this virus. Therefore, although there's no treatment for it, when people know that they've been in contact with somebody with monkeypox, they can get vaccine, and the vaccine can protect them from getting the disease.
So what should be the goal of surveillance at this stage of the outbreak?
I think it is important just to be really watchful rather than worrying or being as concerned as well. And second, it's not a new virus. The only problem, this is the first outbreak outside Africa or involving a lot of other countries. And therefore, it is important to know what is happening. The key things for people to know how this is transmitted and how to identify the symptoms, how they can report them.
This is the first outbreak of monkeypox to involve some cases in various countries that are non-endemic. What do we know about the source of this outbreak?
Yes, we don't know much about the source. Here in the UK, Health Security Agency reported that the majority of cases were among the people who were gay or bisexual. There's an investigation to see how this happened. It's not a known sexually transmitted disease, but because it's transmitted through close contact, therefore we can say sexually transmissible. We do not know actually the source of this current outbreak. What we need to know about the linkage of cases perhaps is just people who have close contact with other people. I think that's what has been driving this current outbreak. And I know health workers in London that saw some of the cases, some of the people that were infected are isolating at home at the moment. They've been vaccinated, and that's all that can be done at the moment.
Dr. Mwidimi Ndosi, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And that was Dr. Mwidimi Ndosi, Associate Professor of Rheumatology Nursing at the School of Health and Social Wellbeing at the University of the West England, Bristol. That's our show for today. At least that's our health report for today. The show keeps going with Esther. Back to you.
Thank you, Lino. And thanks, Lino. Be sure to watch Lino Mundu's health report every Tuesday right here on Africa 54. After acquiring tennis skills needed to win in the Australia Open Junior Championships, 18-year-old Kenyan Angela Okutoyi plans a sterling performance as she prepares for the World French Tennis Open competition. I narrated this report filed by Huba Abdi from Nairobi. It's time for Angela Okutoyi to practice.
Only 3, not more than 3.
Though young in the world of tennis, Angela Okutoyi, 18, is the first Kenyan to win the Grand Slam juniors tennis match in the Australia Open. Her dream is to participate and win in the French Open competition in France. Okutoyi has won several matches, but says there's one she highly values.
Naweza sema nimeshinda mataji mengi, siwezi zisema zote.
I can say I have won several medals that I may not be able to mention here, but the one I won last year in the Africa Junior Championship in Tunis is what propelled me to the Australia Open competition and enabled my name to be entered in the main draw in Australia.
In 2018, she was the youngest player to win the Kenya Open at age 14 after defeating a three-time champion Shofar Changawa 6-1, 7-6 at the Nairobi club. Angela says she is inspired by American tennis champion Serena Williams and that her journey and that of Serena are similar.
Namuenzi Serena Williams juu vile anacheza.
I look up to Serena Williams because the way she plays is very impressive, and that's how I play. She's the aggressive baseliner and works hard in the court. I think that's what I get from her, and my background is pretty much like hers. She encountered hardships in life, and that's why she inspires me.
The Confederation of Kenya Tennis Players last month fundraised for Okutoyi to participate in the French Open, saying lack of finances were hindering her success. Her coach, Francis Rogoi, says supporting Okutoyi financially will enable her to succeed.
Kwa sasa Angela iko kwa transition, na kwa hiyo transition changamoto kubwa zaidi.
For now, Angela is in transit, and this transition is a challenge financially. It means she will need support for the whole year. Finances to make 10 trips in 3 weeks of competition and another 3 weeks for training.
Kwa mwezi moja ni $10,010. So hizi pesa ni pesa za kuwezesha.
If this is possible, Angela will rise to the top.
Kwa hizi safari 10 ziko na wiki 3 za mashindano na wiki 3 za kufanya training.
Naenda Italy, tournament 2, grade 1 na grade A.
I'll be heading to Italy for 2 tournaments in grade 1 and 2, then A, then go to France for the French Open. My hope in those tournaments is to reach the semifinals and to collect many points to get a good ranking for the French Open and set a new record better than the one I set in Australia if I pass the 3rd round.
For Huba Abdi in Nairobi, Kenya, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. Angela is raised by her grandmother after her mother passed away right after giving birth to her and her twin sister. And that wraps up our show for today. To watch Africa 54, go to our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.